If you watch my videos in the past, you probably know that a series that I enjoy is the series By the Edge of the Sword, which is a French system for medieval combat. Many modules have been released. There are over 30 battles that you can play if you learn this system, which is not too complicated, and once you get used to it, it makes a lot of sense. There is command radius, there are individual leaders, there are charges, there are all the things that you probably want to have in a good medieval series. And in this video I'm not going to cover the basics of the system again. I did that in my video for The Lion and the Sword. If you want to get the basics of the system, you can watch that video. What I'm going to talk about today is the new module that was recently released for this series, and this is called Sword of Sovereignty. The module was originally released in French, but it is available with English rules. The English rulebook is what I'm holding here. And the system portrays two battles, Bouvon and Waringen. Now this is published by Ludifolie, a new French publisher that is not the publisher that has published other modules in the past. Component-wise, the components look pretty much the same as they did in previous games. I'm talking about the style of the map, the style on the counters, the art on counters and maps. In any case, Swords of Sovereignty. Let me show you the two battles that come with this module, and then we can talk about the way in which these battles play. This is the Battle of Bouvon. Here you have the French army led by Philip II, and here you have the army of Otto IV, who is right there. The terrain, as you can see, is not particularly challenging. There are some changes in elevation here and there, but not crazy obstacles like you have in other games in the series. More or less, this is terrain that lends itself to cavalry charges, which is always an interesting thing. This is a battle that does not have many special rules. There is a rule about stacking. Militia units are allowed to stack two in a single hex. You can have two militia units in a hex, which is more than the usual stacking limit in the game, which is 1 unit per hex plus leaders. And also the French player has this very interesting unit here that works as a normal cavalry unit with some important consequences of the French morale. If knights and or men-at-arms of the French player are adjacent to that unit and they are discouraged, they can lose their discourage marker automatically. They do not need to rally to lose their discourage marker. However, if that unit is eliminated by the opponent, then the opponent gains a lot of victory points. The game may last up to 8 turns. It will end sooner if a player manages to eliminate the leader of the opponent, or if a player manages to have 30 points more than the opponent. Otherwise, you play until the end of turn 8 and you count victory points. Victory points are gained by eliminating enemy units and controlling specific axes on the map. Actually, I haven't played this scenario yet. I just set it up and I wanted to give you a general introduction to it. Next I'm going to play it and then I'm going to convey my impressions to you. A little note about my previous video, the one about the Battle of Bouvon. As soon as I started playing the game, I realized that I had forgotten placing 3 counters on the map. I placed them, I used them during the game, so I got a good sense of how the game works. But I don't think that overall that's gonna change entirely your perception of setup. This is why I'm not setting up the game again. Just imagine that there are a little more counters on the board, but only 3. It really doesn't change all that much. Your general idea of the setup of the previous battle should remain more or less the same. Now, let's talk about Waringen. Here you have the map and the setup. This time the setup should be fine. I checked it. The setup for the battle. Here we have the forces of Siegfried II facing those of Jean of Brabant. Let's have a little close-up just to show you what you have here, a lot of militia. So again, you have a rule that tells you can stack 2 militia units together, and a lot of cavalry units, and the same here. And overall you have less units than in the previous scenario, and as you can see, terrain is pretty clear. So again, cavalry units, clear terrain, you know charges are going to happen. And like the previous scenario, this is one that doesn't have many special rules. For example, we have a special rule there, which represents the siege of Waringen. As you can see, there is a unit of Jean of Brabant adjacent to the city and a siege marker on it. If there isn't at least a unit sieging that city, then the siege marker is flipped to the other side, which reveals the amount of victory points that the opponent gains. So Jean of Brabant needs to keep that city under siege to prevent the opponent from gaining victory points. Another new thing that we have here, but again not really a complicated one, not one that adds much complexity, is a type of unit called the war wagon, which is this one. Each side actually has one. This unit can be stacked with other units, and it gives a combat bonus to the unit or units it is stacked with. This is all it does. Also, Jean of Brabant has a marker that can be used to give a bonus to his cavalry charges. That marker represents particularly effective knights. So this is the general idea. Definitely a smaller battle. In fact, it takes much less victory points to achieve automatic victory. Like in other games, if you have a certain amount of points more than your opponent during the game, you achieve automatic victory. Since here there are less units of the opponent to eliminate, it takes less, and overall it will take you less time to play just because of the smaller amount of units. This is pretty much all I can tell you for now, because it is time for me to play the game. Then we'll get to the conclusions, in which I'll talk about my experience of playing both battles. When I play a new module in a system, what I'm looking for is a series of similarities with things that I knew before, because if I want to play a new game in the system, it means that I like the system. I want to find some of the things that I know already, but at the same time I want to find something specific, something new, something with its own flavor. Now, what does this module offer in terms of, say, individual personality or flavor? Or at least something that I hadn't encountered before. Maybe the things that I'm going to mention next were present in other battles in the system. I just do not know all of the battles. So in any case, what I found here to be pretty individual is a larger range of opportunities that you have here for charges. Charges just seem to be easier to execute here because of terrain and because of composition of the armies. In particular, in the Warringer battle, there are a lot of cavalry units and men-at-arms and mounted men-at-arms that can charge. Another thing that is pretty interesting is that ranged units are really not all that important here. In the Bouvin battle, there are ranged units, but they have a penalty, so they're actually less effective than they are in other games in the series. And in the Warringer battle, there simply aren't any. There are no range units whatsoever, which I think also makes that battle probably ideal for somebody who wants to start playing the system. And if you want to start gradually, that battle, will allow you to practice melee, movement, command, charges, and you do not have to worry about the extra phases that come from, extra phases and extra complexity that come from having ranged units. Another thing that goes together with this is the fact that the two battles definitely do not have many special rules, and the special rules are mainly modifiers rather than events that may be triggered by certain circumstances like you have in other battles. So again, even though you do have rules that will add chrome and flavor, you do not have to be distracted by them. You do not have to invest energy in those extra procedures. You just concentrate on the main system. So, overall, these are battles that are fast-paced, straightforward. They require, it seems to me, less time and less investment than other battles. Especially the War Engine battle, the size is smaller than what you have in other modules in the series. Still, a lot of interesting things can happen, a lot of interaction, but they're manageable, not too long to play, not too long to set up, not too many complex things that you have to take into account, not even all the units that you have in other modules. So, to me, this module could really work very well as an introduction to the system. I do not know that it will be the most appreciated by hardcore wargamers that maybe would like more terrain, more rules, more units, more complexity, but of course it's a trade-off. You have battles that are easy and relatively quick, and therefore you do not find something that you find somewhere else. In general, these are to me good battles. True, I played each battle only once, but my time constraints these days are such that I couldn't play the battles much more, but I still wanted to share my initial impressions with you. My initial impressions are positive, that these are interesting battles that I would use to introduce somebody new to the system. May not be my favorite battles in the system, but they're still pretty good.